Abby Watts, thank you so much for joining us today on Unscripted.
You're so welcome. I'm glad to be here.
I appreciate your time, and this is a real privilege for us. You are a wife, a mother, a stepmom. You've spent 15 years in local radio doing a morning show ministry, I like to call it. But you are currently the content manager of imom.com, which is affiliated with All Pro Dads and Family First programs. You have been seen by many in this community as an advocate for mothers and wives and women in general. You have been considered by many to be a voice of guidance to Christians regarding cultural concerns. And I just want to welcome you. And if you don't mind, I really want to find out more information about iMom and Family First. And could you just kind of break that out a little bit and how it works and what the vision is?
Sure. Yeah. Well, the vision of Family First is that every child has a parent who is engaged in their life, and that every parent sees the need and desires to be engaged in the life of their child. That's our vision, is that someday every kid is going to have a mother and father figure in their life that loves them and wants to pour into them. We do that through providing marriage, relational and parenting truth that it's really actually kind of simple. We just try to help parents love their families well. Family First is like the organization. And then there's two main parts. It's iMom and All Pro Dad. All Pro Dad is, Tony Dungy is our spokesman. He helped create the program. He's amazing. They have chapter programs in the elementary schools. So once a month, dads come and have breakfast with their kids and go over curriculum and a topic. And it's amazing. Every time I watch the little promo video, I cry every single time. It brings tears to my eyes. It's just the most beautiful thing. So that's All Pro Dad. And then iMom, we are mainly the online platform, the website, write articles. We send out daily emails. And yeah, we just help moms feel less alone and, tell them that there are better ways to parent than what they might find if they Google the particular issue that they're facing right now.
Right. And you have been in the past few years getting great attention for writing some of these articles on iMom. You've also had some experience with Catholic Mom Blogger.
CatholicMom.com. Yeah, I wrote for them for a few years as well.
Okay, how did you kind of get into this? How did this door open?
So like you said, I did 15 years in radio, but I like writing a lot more than I like speaking. In any relationship, this is totally weird. Any relationship I've ever been in, like I didn't date that much, but any guy I ever dated, I would write if I had a problem, if I had some type of tension, I would write it down instead of talk it out, because it comes easier through my hands than through my mouth, I guess. Maybe it's because I have more time to think about it. And so actually going into radio was really scary for me. And it was a leap of faith, honestly. And God proved over and over again that I had to get over myself because I would say so many times, oh, I screwed that up. Fernando and I hosted the show. I'd tell Fernando, I'd be like, we screwed that up. I messed that up so bad. I can't believe I just said that, or that didn't make any sense. And usually the bits, or the breaks where I said that are the ones where we would get an email or a phone call and somebody said, you said exactly what I needed to hear. And I'm like, oh, well, thank you, Holy Spirit, for stepping in and fixing, my mistake. So yeah, I was in radio, but I love writing. And that I reached out to Catholic Mom and said, hey, if you want another writer, and they said, yep, come on. And then I always used iMom content on the morning show on Spirit FM. And so I just happened to see one day that Family First was hiring and that this was going to be more writing. And I thought, and I prayed, and I just said, I think it's time for a change. And that's, and just God opened doors. You know how that is. Like sometimes you're not sure if it's the right direction to go or whatever. And I prayed, I said, put doors in my way, put up blockades if this is not the right move. And if it is, if you can just open the doors. And it was really simple. It just all came together really simply.
Well, it was a good nudge in the right direction, because you actually brought up you bring up topics in your writing that I think people think about but don't know how to put it into words. And some of the list of the topics that you tackle, there's the 20 parent-teacher conference questions, which that is something I'm going to use because I can always walk in there and approach it, but I just never know what to say.
Yes. And I'll tell you what, Facebook is such a great resource for me because for that article and several, we write a few months in advance. So like right now I'm thinking about Christmas and New Year's. Mm-hmm. So I had to like reach out to Facebook friends and say, hey, teachers, what are some good questions for parents to ask? What do you want them to ask? What's a productive question? You know? And so that has really been helpful, but that I get into every parent teacher conference. I sit down in those tiny orange chairs and I'm like, well, how's he doing? You know, I don't know what to ask. And then as soon as we get to the car, I'm like, oh, I should have said this.
It was unfulfilled.
This. Yes. Or I follow up. I'm like, sorry, I forgot to ask this. And then I feel like a dummy, like I'm taking up, you know, their time. But yeah.
You've also written about 5 things to say to protect your kids from online predators. That's pretty relative nowadays. I mean, more so than we'd like to believe, you know? It's very dangerous.
Yeah. And like some of these, like I said, some of them I'll research by asking friends. Other ones I have to really dig and go out there and read a lot of, you know, studies that have been done or things like that. And it kind of turns my stomach, especially topics like that. But I'm better off for knowing the information, and even if it's hard to read. And so I pray that other moms will, you know, put their big girl pants on and say, all right, I don't want to know about this, but I'm going to read it.
Well, I mean, just to continue on a little bit, you were a single mom for a while. So you wrote about 7 things single moms can do to raise awesome boys, 3 common frustrations of wives, which my wife should not read. But you wrote one which brings about a lot of awareness, and one of the ministries I work in is Celebrate Recovery. So I work with a lot of people in recovery. You wrote about the 7 truths about women addicted to porn, and I think that's it's very revealing because a lot of people, even in recovery, when women come in with this problem that a lot of people think that does not happen to women for some reason, it is still kept a secret. Mm-hmm. And I think even reading your article, I think people that even think they may have a problem should read it because it goes into very just confidently what is a red light, what is dangerous.
Yeah, my biggest fear with that article, because I really wanted to write it, my biggest fear is that women will either not even give it a second glance because they don't think that any woman struggles with this. They're like, oh, who's, you know, this isn't a problem. Or they'll think that their problem is not big enough to care about or to look into or to try to fight back against, like you said. But it's real. And what's so crazy, the comments that we get, we have a lot of articles about pornography, you know, between All Pro Dad and I'm Mom, when it comes to talking about kids or talking to your spouse. I'm amazed and, you know, really disheartened by how many people defend pornography. Mm-hmm. Husbands and wives that defend it and say it's helped our marriage, or it's fine that my husband does it because blah, blah, blah. It's really like a veil is in front of their eyes. You know, they get some type of immediate, you know, treat or gratification, you know, in their marriage, at least from it. And they think, well, then it must be fine. But it's such a poisonous pill.
Yeah. It's like justifying a cancer.
Mm-hmm. It really is. It really is. So I'm hoping that article, well, I pray that it goes viral, really, honestly. And I hope that more people are not afraid to talk about it because there's so much shame also, I think, that goes along with it. So I just hope that it opens up some conversations, even between girlfriends, you know, like you don't have to go on Facebook and say, this is me and I have this problem. Just talk to your friends about it, right? And hold each other accountable, you know?
And I think a lot of people, you know, will feel like alone in this, and they're not. You know, so many people deal with these issues.
Yeah.
You know, with these articles, I mean, when you go through these articles, and you see the relevance in it, it doesn't discriminate, like we're talking about right now. I mean, it can happen to almost anybody. Have you ever had the feedback or response where you went, wow, I never knew, or who knew that this could happen to somebody, or maybe somebody just responded in a way that you just never thought that they would take that article?
There are some articles that we put out on iMom that are kind of evergreen. It's problems and issues or just parenting concerns that have always been around and will always be around, like consequences, how to give your kid proper consequences. But I also like to kind of lean into what's happening right now, So one of them, to answer your question, one of the articles was about ASMR, and I didn't really even know what this was. It's funny that I'm going to mention it to you while we're recording this podcast episode, but it's popular on YouTube, and it's these people that whisper into microphones and do all sorts of random things. Oh. They open a bag of potato chips and crunch the chips, and the microphone is like cranked up like to full freak sensitivity, so anything that they say, it picks up the tiniest thing. They'll even like rub their hands against each other, and the noise that like the skin makes. So the research behind it is that it can be helpful for maybe like kids with ADHD, or if you have a hard time relaxing at night, you can listen to it to fall asleep. Unfortunately, it, like anything, has gone like totally too far, and people are watching it, and kids are really into it. And so I found out about it, and I was like, this is really like on trend. I wonder if people know about this. I'm going to just try it. And maybe it's just something that's out of left field and no one's going to know anything. And tell you what, there were moms that were like, my kid falls asleep to this every night. I never thought about it like this. I never realized that, I never considered this angle. And I'm like, okay, I'm not glad that your kids are falling asleep to it, but yay that it opened your eyes to it. And just, they didn't even, actually, there were some moms that said, I'd never heard of this. I asked my kid, and they watch it all the time. So that's really also what we're looking for. Like, parents have a lot to keep up with.
Yes.
Every day there's a new app or whatever. So just trying to help them stay on top of things.
With your articles and blog posts, they are aimed for women. I mean, that's what iMom's all about. And in your articles, you often reference the link to All Pro Dads when you're trying to provide a male perspective. But knowing guys, because I am one, we have a hard time retreating to help and guidance and, opinions about matters when it comes to the relationship. With that in mind, is it kind of in your hopes when you write these articles that somehow, some way you feel like this could like be shared and helping men as well?
Yeah, a lot of times women respond, or they leave comments saying, well, why don't you tell men this? Why are you blaming women? And I'll just kindly say, listen, we write to women because we're imom.com. I'm not writing to a man here. I'm talking to you about what you can do. But we also occasionally will leave a little like link that says, here, share this with your husband. Tell him this, or ask him this. Or I just wrote one recently that it was a marriage article, and it was like, ask your husband if he wants to try this with you. It's something about, a 30-day challenge type of thing. So I think that we encourage women to try it first, whatever they want to do, whatever they're trying to get their husband to maybe change, you start. You go first. That might not be ideal, of course. You want your husband to step up on his own, but if that's not going to happen, then do it. And then share this article with them. Leave a little note. Nothing doesn't hurt, right?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I've become in my old age a little more available, I guess, to the opinions and thoughts my wife might have.
I think that's called humility.
Yes, it is. It's very much so. And, I grew up, my mom was a single mom for a little while and I had two sisters. So I'm no stranger to a house of females and I have a wife and a daughter. But somewhere along the way, I just kind of got involved with my pride. You're right. It was humility, just coming down off my pedestal and saying, you know what, I'm wrong.
Yeah.
With All Pro Dads and iMom, you said that All Pro Dads kind of goes out there into chapters and schools. Does iMom do anything like that, or is it strictly online?
We used to have iMom breakfasts. In fact, when I talked to my sister about when I was going to apply for this position, and I was like, do you know about iMom? She goes, oh yeah, I used to go to the iMom breakfast. Actually, she said, I still go to iMom breakfast at my kid's school. And I was like, I don't think they have them anymore. She goes, oh, well, that must be why we keep recycling old material. So they liked them so much that they kept doing the same curriculum that they had in the past. But what we found was that, and the breakfast went away before I started, but what we found was that dads were so much more actively attending the All Pro Dad breakfast and the chapter meetings. And we think it's because moms are always dropping the kids off at school. I mean, of course, there's exceptions, but moms are very engaged in their kids' lives. And so going to breakfast at school doesn't have the same value or same appeal as a dad's breakfast. Mm-hmm. The moms are encouraging the dads, go do this once a month thing. It gives me a break from making Eggos that morning, and so, yeah, it just wasn't as popular as the All Pro Dad chapters. And there's costs involved, I mean, it's not a free program for Family First to put on. There's investments on our end. And so you just kind of had to weigh those out.
Right. Well, another reason why I asked is I always do see, all Pro Dads chapters, at least in the school that my kids go to. And it would be great to see iMom in there too, somehow, some way.
You're not the only person that has said it. And so I think that we are trying to figure out ways to reach moms in the way that they want to connect nowadays. And honestly, I think that with COVID happening and everybody becoming so much more, everybody knows how to join a Zoom meeting now. Mm-hmm. Even the
Oh, you broke up for a second. I'm sorry.
Or do you want me to back up?
Just finish your thought. I missed that last part.
We're still mulling over the idea of bringing breakfast back, or what form it might look to bring moms together. Maybe they want to talk to each other, or maybe they want to do something with their kids.
Okay. Yeah, I would love to see that. I know my wife would love to see it as well. So
that's the whole reason you invited me on here, isn't it? You were just trying to lobby for breakfast to come back.
Guilty.
Come on, Tia.
Guilty. Well, listen, many people find sincere hope and a learning experience in the things you've talked about, and not just in what you do now, but in the varied ministries that you've worked in. Is there anything else that you contribute to as far as writing, or anything else, any other kind of ministries that you work with?
Now not really, because between work and now that my kids are getting to be a little bit older, they're 8 and 9, so they're definitely we're not into the teenage years yet. Sure. But while they're more self-sufficient, I feel like I need to be more present with them now more than ever. Mm-hmm. So I'm not doing any other writing. I mean, I do like little reflections here and there for the church, but not anything that definitely not anything I'm getting paid for, doing church work. So I'm really just kind of pouring into this and loving it.
Would you ever consider maybe putting together a compilation in a book, or even writing just a brand new, fresh book? I've heard
such horror stories about actually writing a book. So it's funny you ask that. Some people are like, oh, if you get a chance, don't do it. But it's funny you ask, because recently I looked back on like when I was at Spirit FM, every Monday through Friday, a different staff member would write the reflection that we would use for our thought for the day. Mm-hmm. And mine was Tuesdays. And so my little Google Doc is called Tuesday Reflections. And I was writing one the other day for the church, and like based on the gospel reading or whatever for that Sunday. And I looked at that document, and it's 92 pages. And some of the pages have more than one reflection on it. And I thought, gosh, I've written a lot of these. Like, I wonder if there's something I can do with them. And then my negative thoughts and my inner critic pop up and start talking, and they go, well, you're not a theology major. You didn't go to seminary, you blah, blah, blah. So I talk myself out of it, but it's something I probably should pray about more.
I think you should. In fact, what is a theology degree when it comes to just your own Christian journey? People relate to the journey, not so much to the theology of your degree. It's all about the experience. So,
well, thanks for the encouragement. I appreciate that.
I hope you do. I think
you don't just look like my husband; you encourage like my husband, because he's like my favorite cheerleader. Yeah.
So, doing what you do, being at times the voice of reason, at least for me at times, the voice of comfort, the voice of guidance, and I would even say truth and love. Other than your relationship with God, how or who or where do you get the nourishment and the rest? When you yourself can't make sense of it all, when you can't find the answer, when life just gets heavy, what do you do? Where do you go? How do you handle it?
And you said other than prayer, right?
Other than your relationship with God, yes.
Because I would say I probably should actually pray more.
Okay.
Because I do, of course I do. I think that I should visit that first more often than I do, would be what I would say to that.
And I think we're all guilty of that.
Yeah. Yes. My husband really is, so we've been married since late 2017, December of 2017. And he is just he's an encourager. Like I said, he is calming to me. He's a logistics minded person. And so anytime I'm spiraling, he straightens it out and puts things in order for me. But he also asks me, I don't know if you've seen like the nail in the head thing, the husband and wife, and she's got the nail in his head and she just wants to talk about the nail, and he's like, wants to pull the nail out. And so Davis will ask me, he's like, am I pulling the nail out, or are we just talking about the nail? So he knows sometimes I just want to talk. But yeah, he's a great listener. He's a great advisor. Sometimes if I'm nervous about something, he's like, have you prayed about it yet? And so he also will lead me in the direction that I ultimately need to go, which is to God. So yeah, that's definitely him.
Here's another question. Sometimes I ask people, what do your bad days look like? But I'm going to ask you something a little bit different.
Oh, goodness.
Are there bad days, or is that just a choice?
Chris, are there bad days, or is that just a choice? I think I want to say it's just a choice. I think it's just a choice. No, see, I don't like being wrong. I'm an Enneagram 1. I do not like being wrong. I like being right and good. I think it's a choice. I really do. I think that you can have a day where everything seems to go wrong and it seems like it's out of your hands. But even in the really, really crappy, I think that you can still find something to be grateful for. You can focus on gratitude. You can let go of the anger that you might be feeling that might be causing those next things to happen, or the bad day to happen. So I do think it's a choice. And thank you for asking that, because now next time I feel like I'm having a bad day, I'm going to have to I'm going to have to say, what are you choosing that is making it happen like that?
Yeah. Yeah. You got to sometimes.
Yeah.
I understand trauma happens and you have to persevere through that trauma. But so many days, and there's many days a person can sit there and say, that was a bad day. Was it really?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. There's always something to be grateful for, even if it's just your feet on the floor.
Yes.
You know?
Absolutely. You ever felt the nudge to do something else? I mean, I know you explained that you want to kind of settle into the mom, being there a little more present, but is there anything else maybe in this life you'd like to kind of go towards?
What a great question. I don't allow myself to think about stuff like that very often because I don't hate change. I don't dislike change, but it's a little bit scary for me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, or a lot, I think about, this is going to sound totally crazy to you. I think a lot about how much I loved waiting tables. I slung chicken wings for most of my college years, and then for a year afterwards, I've worked at several Beef O'Grady's, and I can tell you everything that was on that menu, front and back, up and down. And I don't know if I was great at it, but I really liked it. And so I try to think about what it was about serving people, literally and figuratively, that I enjoyed so much. And I think it was that I connected, I got to talk to families, I got to talk to people. I got to make them happy by feeding them. So I'm not saying I'd want to go back to waiting tables, but something I think that allows me and that's what I love the most about being on the radio was it wasn't the coming up with crazy bits or whatever. It was when people would call in and we could talk,
Right.
So I think it's always going to be, whether I'm in nonprofit work, ministry work, for-profit work, I think I'm always going to have to connect to people.
You're very relational.
Yeah. It's just, I think it's part of my DNA, really, just how God made me.
Yeah, and it's a great way. Not to mention, what do you call those little buttons you used to put on your weight?
The flare?
The flare.
We didn't have to wear
flare.
Thank God. No, do not have my flare. I don't think I have any remnants. There's no evidence of my time.
Those things are crazy.
Yeah, we did not have flare, thank goodness. I can't keep up with all that.
All right, you said that, and it brings a thought to my head. So when you and your family go out to dinner, are you like extra nice to the waiter or waitresses, or are you a good tipper?
Oh gosh, we don't ever tip less than. For us to tip less than 20%, it has to be really bad service. And even then, we went out a couple weeks ago, and the service was horrible. And we had this server before, and it was horrible then too. And we got the little survey, and I was really gentle. And I said, I don't think this is what he is called to do. I tried to be really kind about it. You're not a bad person. This is just not your calling because you're really bad at this. I mean, I didn't say it in quite those words, but yeah, I mean, I try not to pre-bus the tables because I know that's bad etiquette, I don't want to stack the plates or anything,
right?
But there will not be food on the floor. I don't like touching other people's napkins. And so I try to make sure that our dirty napkins are, collected, stuff like that. Yeah. I will always be in the server's corner. Awesome.
So I have a random question, and I hope you'll like it at least, or at least, it'll be humor me. That's all I'm saying. Okay.
All right.
So, and reading these articles and just getting that sort of humanistic and relatable embrace that you provide in writing those things. It's almost a reminder that we are not perfect and we're not going to be. But in a world filled with wrong ways, it's kind of like you're saying, just try this and see what happens. With that being said, the random question is, Abby Watts, the public school system wants you to pick one book other than the Bible, one movie, and one piece of music / album to be taught in the curriculum. What would they be?
Oh, goodness gracious.
One book, one movie, one piece of music.
I'm so bad at questions like this because I feel like there has to be a right answer and I want to give
No right
it. I promise you, anytime someone asks me, if you had to pick one, I'd be like, well, actually, I picked three. You know, so I'm really bad about that.
Well, there's no rules here, you know.
Okay, so the first book that came to mind for me is C.S. Lewis, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Chronicles of Narnia.
Great.
It's just, even put aside the allegory part of it, put aside the fact that, you know, Aslan is Jesus, whatever. It's just such a good story. It's so fun to read. Kids love it. The imagery is amazing. It teaches you about lying, about telling the truth, about the slippery slope of sin, about the beauty of like innocence in Little Lucy. It's really the perfect book for adults and kids, I think.
Yeah, it's a great choice.
We started a tradition, I'm doing air quotes here, where we read it like during Lent leading up to Easter. Wow. We did it once. And then the next year, that was 2 years ago. And last year, I'll blame COVID. I think that something, I don't know what was going on. Maybe school was too hectic or something, and we didn't do it again. But I'm going to bring it back this year, and we'll read it again in Lent this year. So that was the book. The movie. So the movie has to teach a curriculum or used in curriculum. Uh-huh. Ooh, I like this question. Movie that I'm trying to think of all the movies that are coming to mind are not appropriate for children. I mean, they're not like bad, but I'm like, no, that part, nope. All right, you're gonna have to edit out my long gaps.
No, you're fine. I kind of, you know, I expected it.
You're watching wheels turning right now. I'm trying to think of my kids' favorite movies too, or ones that we've watched together and we really love.
Are you all a Marvel household?
Yeah, we like all those. Okay. I really want to give a good answer here, so I'm not going to rush myself.
There's no wrong answer, though. I just don't want you to regret it later and go, I should have said it.
Oh, I 100% will. I promise you. There will be an email in your inbox by tonight saying, I meant to say this one.
We'll edit it.
Yeah. Nope, for the audio. I feel like I should move on to the song and come back to the movie.
Slightly inappropriate's okay. If the inappropriateness has value to it.
Yeah.
Put it that way. If it's just senseless, well, yeah.
Right. My mind is totally blanking, but I'm not giving up. You know what? For the movie, I'm not saying this is my favorite movie,
right.
But I think that the schools should show the original, the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Great answer.
Because, yeah, I think that all those kids had their eyes on the prize or their eyes on the candy, and we got to see a lot of in theory, isn't like the seven deadly sins represented in those kids or whatever. So I think that, and it's just fun too. It's fun to see Charlie get rewarded at the end, although he was also representative of one of the seven deadly sins. So it goes to show that no one's perfect. Mm-hmm. And even in our imperfections, God still loves us. We are still given the ultimate reward, not a chocolate factory, but eternal life, slightly better.
Right.
To not lean in and drink out of the chocolate river. I mean, who does that anyway? It's not sanitary to start with, right?
You know what else? You know what else that movie shows that I think a lot of people skip by is that no matter how old you are, you shouldn't just lay in bed.
Amen.
There is still life.
I mean, Grandpa Joe, he was a freeloader, right?
Yes.
Jeez, he could have gotten out of bed. He got out of bed once he got that golden ticket.
Yeah. But the rest of the family, they were just like, hey, we're gonna hang back.
Yeah. Those poor parents, the sandwich generation, right? And the kids, the parents there. And a song, well, that's even harder because I love music
album
so much. Yeah. An album, that is great. I love that question. I really do. All right. Well, I'm only going to say this because it's the first album that came to my mind, and I'll try to figure out how it can relate to teaching. Maybe it's just, okay, I'll say it. I go on record. I'm 41 years old. I go on record having said that the greatest album of my generation is Pearl Jam's 10, and I will listen to it from start to finish. It's a journey. It is like a rise and fall, and it's beautiful, right?
Change the life.
Not every song is a single, and that's what's great about it. And coming from radio, that's really what iTunes and Spotify and all those have spoiled about music, is that people don't really buy albums as much anymore, and if they do, they don't listen to it from start to finish. Like the intentionality of putting a certain song at a certain track, it's lost now. So I would pick that one just so that kids can hear how well done that can be, and maybe gain an appreciation for the work as a whole, the album as a whole, because these artists have to pick, a lot of them write 20 songs for an album and they have to pick 12.
Right.
And there's a reason for it. So I guess I would pick Pearl Jam 10.
That's a great choice. And something else too, there's a vulnerability in those lyrics that I think that was a lot of youthful expression that Eddie Vedder got out on that record.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm one of the people on the cusp of Gen X and millennial. I'm in that like brackish water of neither one really fits. But when I think about, like, if I really had to claim one, I think I have to claim Gen X, mostly for that phase of like the mid to late 90s, 92, 93, 94. Yeah. And Pearl Jam was a big part of that.
I have an Eddie Vedder story, which I'm not going to go into right now, but it's worth sharing with you at some point because it embarrasses me completely.
It's all right.
But it's well worth telling you at some point in time.
That's a good radio tease. I like it. I'll tell you right after this song.
Last question for you. In Jesus's teachings, what part do we overlook the most in being a parent or a spouse?
I love that question because it's probably going to make me think. I'll probably think about that question for a long time to come and how I treat my children. I think mercy, I think that we expect it to be shown to us, but I don't think we give it as often as we're called to. I think that, we tell our kids over and over again to put your shoes by the door. Don't just throw them randomly, blah, blah, blah. And we think that because we've told them, they're going to always remember, they're always going to do it. And when they don't do it, it's not because they just forgot or had a bad day. It's because they're being disobedient or because they're irresponsible. Meanwhile, I don't put my shoes in the same spot every day, even though I know where they go. And same thing with our husbands and wives. I think that I have very high standards for my husband, and I expect him to let me slip here and there. So I think it's to show mercy,
Great. And I think we should lower our expectations too. With that being said,
Yeah,
yeah, that's
for
going to
sure.
mercy. That's for sure.
Yep, and for ourselves too. I mean, since you said lowering, I mean, sometimes we hold ourselves to. We need to be kinder to ourselves, I guess is how I can put that.
Yeah. It seems like when we're kinder to ourselves, we're kinder to other people, aren't we?
Yep. Yep.
Abby, thank you so much for doing this today. I really do appreciate your time, and it's been a privilege to speak with you.
It was my pleasure. It was a lot of fun.
Would you like to share any details on anything coming up as far as iMom or Family First?
Well, I'll tell you that we are working on an iMom podcast. So when that is up and running, I will definitely be posting about it on my Facebook page, and I'm Abby Watts on Facebook, and that's my personal page. I also have I have one where it's a work page, but I'm not good at keeping up with both. I'm showing my age these days. I'm not good at keeping up with all the different avenues. So, yeah. So we'll be starting a podcast soon, and yeah, I'm just pumping out those articles and trying my best to help moms love their kids well, love their husbands well.
And people can go to imom.com to read your articles?
That's right. Yep.
Awesome.
And and we have the iMom Minute. So Monday through Friday, we send out the daily email. And if you're not subscribed to that, then that's right there on the website too.
Okay, good. Thank you again. It's been an honor.